thank you everyone for coming this evening, and it's really nice to have Sean Ferguson here with us from the Asia School of Business in Kuala Lumpur, and talking about, you know, what are the opportunities in Southeast Asia? How is it sort of, how does it look as a job market? How does it look as an education market? And what does ASB have to offer? But a lot of emphasis on, you know, why Southeast Asia and MBA. So I'm going to let him talk about that. I do just want to take a moment to introduce myself. So my name is, I think, Preeti, you can go ahead to the next slide. My name is Kim Dixit, and I am the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen, which is a education consultancy based in Mumbai. We have 5 service lines, as you can see here: early advising, undergraduate, postgraduate, MBA, boarding and day schools. So we support families and students and applicants who are interested in educational decisions and choices at any stage of their educational journey. We've been around for 9 years, and we have consultants in 7 locations. Our main office and our only office is in Mumbai, so we work out of Mumbai. We have worked with, you know, over 6,000 applicants, and we have a team of about 70 members representing 19 nationalities. That's all to say that we're a very global organization, though we are based in Mumbai. We sort of work with institutions and students and people all over the world, and that's what we're doing tonight, is connecting with an institution that's in Kuala Lumpur, and Sean will tell you more about it. I think that's all I need to say about the Red Pen. If you have any questions about what we do, you can always you know, reach out to us on, we have, I think it's not on this slide, but we have, you know, Instagram handles, LinkedIn, and also our website, which is theredpen.in. So I encourage you to look for us there. And beyond that, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Sean, who will tell you all about Southeast Asia. Okay, Sean, you go ahead and you can share your screen.
All right. Let's keep this screen sharing going. I think we may have it, or do you guys see my screen? No?
Yes, yes. I'm gonna just turn my camera off, but I'll be listening.
Yep. Okay, so everyone sees the rise of the generalist slide? Yes, okay.
Yes, we
well,
see
thank you. Okay, thank you guys very much. This presentation is something it goes with the research that I do here at the ASB related to employability, placement with MBA students. And so I kind of wanted to refashion how we deliver the message. And so as a big Star Wars fan, I thought I'd make some parallels to the Star Wars universe. And what we're seeing is the rise of the generalists in this part of the world. So before I get started, I'm Sean Ferguson, Associate Dean at the Asia School of Business. I'm an open networker, and so for any of you guys, if you want to holler at me or connect with me on LinkedIn, here's my QR code. Please feel free to reach out. Also, you can email me. You know, as a startup business school, we're looking for the right profile of individuals, and so we invest a lot of time in getting to know our students. Before I go into the career portion of the presentation, quick background on ASB. We're a startup business school with the aspirations to be a premier school of management in this part of the world. And so, you know, for us, we want to be recognized for creating transformative and principled leaders. And one of the things that I think really separates us is our commitment to the advancement of the emerging world, with a particular focus on Asia. And what I'm going to talk to you about from a career perspective is going to give you a lot of insight on that. We're a partnership between MIT Sloan and Bank Negara. Bank Negara is the central bank of Malaysia. MIT brings the academic excellence and rigor, and Bank Negara brings the financial and human capital resources. And the real goal is to serve as a talent magnet and a multiplier for the region. And so we're all super enthusiastic about the about our mission here. We're a super diverse international MBA program. We have 80 students, which is, you know, it's a small size, but we're a 5-year-old startup. 70% are international, 30% are Malaysian, 43% are female, and they come from all over the world, 26 countries across 5 different continents. It's an exciting time. We're moving into a new building, so you know, we're really pumped up. COVID's kind of put a little bit of a damper on the building, but The building is massive. It can hold 7 Walmarts. I don't know, like, if you guys have ever had markets like Walmarts in India, but that's big, right? And we have 83 full-time students, so social distancing will not be a problem. We move into our new building in January. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty of the presentation. Let's talk about the current landscape in Asia and what's going on in this part of the world. And you know, if you pay any attention to what's going on CNBC or any of the business channels, it's clear Asia is the future of the global economy. But it's not whether it's going to grow, it's whether it's going to fulfill its potential. And the whole world is banking on the growth that's being driven by this part of the world. You know, what we're seeing is the economic gap between the advanced economies, the G7, and the rest of the world is closing, especially with Asia leading the way. You're seeing China as it's ascending up the value chain to become a more service-oriented economy and driven by its own internal consumption. ASEAN is the acronym for Southeast Asia. It's the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. They're picking up a lot of the slack for China's migration up the value add chain. But there's a real challenge in this part of the world. There's a huge talent deficit, and the region needs more world-class talent. And so what we see, when we dig into some of the research is that, and this was from a Korn Ferry study on the future of work, the global talent crunch. Asia's kind of bifurcated into 2 problems when it comes to talent. There's an aging workforce, mainly in the advanced part of Asia, advanced economies of Asia, Australia, Japan, South Korea, but then also China, due to social engineering from the one-child policy. And then there's not enough skill in the workforce, places like Indonesia, Vietnam, and other Southeast Asian countries. And so this makes for a very rich environment for people in this part of the world. And so, what Korn Ferry was talking about in this survey is that there's a distinct lack of people who can innovate, create, manage, and apply, right? And those are those high skills that we think MBAs are really well known for. Now, you have this issue of talent, the lack of supply, but then you also have the evolution and the revolution of the workforce, which you're seeing with Industry 4.0. So the skills that may have worked for the last 75 years or so are not going to be the skills that we need going forward. As we have more smart factories, autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, what's going to be needed is different, right? So now you've got Industrial Revolution number 4. You've got already this huge talent gap. And then what you're seeing is the rate of change in things that is really only accelerated because of COVID, is picking up and is causing the average tenure and job roles to be shorter, and the half-life of a learned skill is less. So, a study by Douglas Thomas and John Seeley, they talk about the half-life of a skill being only 5 years, and for things that are more technical in nature, say like software, the life is even shorter, maybe as little as 18 months. And so, you're seeing a lot of these changes, and they're even faster in Asia, right? So it's not like the U.S. or the United States where we have these kind of embedded structures of work, and we have like fintech's not breaking out in the U.S. like it is in the United States because there's already an established payment system and things of that nature, right? And I'm half Jamaican, and so when I was growing up, and my grandparents were in Jamaica, there were no landlines there. And then when I went there, like at the end of the 90s, everyone had a cell phone before me. And so the rate of change and how technology is changing life is much faster in the emerging world than the developed world. Now, what we're seeing is, too, when we talk to recruiters, they're placing a much greater emphasis on soft skills, right? People who can, and then one of the best examples of soft skills is communication. This slide gives a good example. Look at candidate 1 versus candidate 2 on the left. You can, if you think about this as a kind of illustrative mapping, right? So someone who has 100 knowledge points, if they can only communicate 25% of those knowledge points versus someone who may have 50 knowledge points, but they can communicate 100% of it, the person who is half as smart, because they can communicate, will look twice as smart than the person who can't, right? And so in this survey, this QS Global Employer Survey, employer dissatisfaction with communication was the 3rd largest of the 15 skills evaluated after problem solving and resilience. And so Employers, they're generally fine with the technical skills that people have, but it's those softer skills, those non-domain specific skills that really are the differentiator. So what's been the solution? So the solution's been really a rise in the generalists. And this kind of goes against some of the trends and norms that you see in the region, right? So if we talk to HR people all the time, they say, oh, we don't want generalists. We need specialists, specialists, specialists. But what you see when you start looking in the salary data, the rewards that generalists are receiving in Asia compared to the rest of the world and the region itself shows that they're outperforming. So while sometimes HR might be the last one to the party, what we're seeing is that the salary data, which is, I think the market is the best indicator of what's really going on in the marketplace. We're seeing that the generalist is rising, and why is the generalist rising? There's just too much uncertainty in today's business environment. So you don't know what skills you're going to need for tomorrow. Like if you rewind just 12 months ago, what people would have said in a survey 12 months ago about what they needed in employees has been totally destroyed and shattered because of COVID-19. Companies in Asia have always, and they continue to do this, mostly hire discipline skill in the early stages of the career, but that's not what really progresses in the organization. The hires eventually have to rely on generalist skills, and with that half-life shrinking very quickly, what you're seeing is that the generalists are rising to the top. And this also with the fast-moving, changing dynamics of this world, that single perspective is detrimental to one's ability to navigate in poorly defined or vague situations, right? And so companies need people who can be versatile. Studies show that employees skilled in numerous functions are much more valuable, and management can deploy them in ways that are much more responsive to changes in the market. And then the other thing that a lot of the learning pedagogy talks about is when professionals armed with analytical capabilities that have been developed through work experience, they will outperform domain-specific skill experts, right? And so what we're finding is that there just aren't enough generalists in Asia, right? And so people are like, so I thought this was about MBAs. What does this have to do with MBAs? MBAs are the world's most popular generalists. And one of the things, so I've been in this business 15 years. I got my MBA over 20 years ago. And for the last, at least since I've been looking at MBAs from undergrad, people are always like, oh, MBAs, are they worth it? Are they not? And, what's the benefit? What's the cost? And, what I always tell people is that it depends. The school and the nature of the experience is what really matters. And so for me, I'm always like, you want to go to a really good school with a really good student body and a curriculum that's going to push and develop you, right? It's not just about learning a financial equation or a marketing framework. It's really about being in a setting where you learn from others. You have interactive a curriculum that facilitates your development instead of just being pushed to you in a lecture-based mode. And so earlier I kind of referred to this, but when you look at the data, the rate of progression from a salary standpoint, MBAs in Asia are outperforming well after graduation. And this chart shows the trend for the last 20 or so years from 1999 to today. And this is from the Financial Times. And if you look at where Asia, and the chart on the left is Asia, and if you look at the progression, it's been staggering, and it's past international schools. International schools are pretty much schools that aren't the US or Asia, mainly European schools, and it's almost on par with the United States. On the chart on the right, if you look at that, the salary percent increase differential from when someone starts an MBA program to 3 years after graduation, it's 27% greater than the US and Asia and 42% better than other international business schools. And so, when people always poo-poo the MBA or what have you, the number of ranked schools has gone up from 2 to 17. And these unique skills that MBAs have travel globally. So this high-end talent will consistently be rewarded. And so why is the market rewarding the MBA? And so because, in principle, based on some of the data we've seen, MBAs are really ideally suited for what Asia Pacific needs from talent-wise. And so why aren't they more prevalent? And they're not prevalent enough because the rates of salary progression are saying they're highly scarce. And what we found is that, for this fourth industrial revolution, there's a combination of skills that are needed. There are these generic skills: teamwork, communication, organizational. There's discipline and technical specific skills like data analysis, digital skills, ops management, etc. But then there are also the personal attributes, right? The self-confidence, the resilience, the ambition. And so while schools focus on delivering the skills, they also have to create an environment that really amplifies and develop the personal attributes as well. And so we did a study where it was a mixed method study where we talked to employers across the region. We conducted interviews across a range of different industries. And because we were trying to figure out what was going on. And so in our study, what we found is that because we've had kind of self-esteem issues here in Asia. When I worked at Hong Kong and here, we're like, well, we don't have the brand. But what we found from employers that Asia schools were well regarded. 70% of the respondents said that Asian schools were on par with top global business schools. Some said they were better. And when they said Asian schools were better, it was because they valued that context-specific perspective that Asian MBA graduates had, or graduates who went to Asian MBA programs. Some thought they were worse. And in most cases, I think that was just kind of the brand of, traditional powers carrying over. Employers recognize and understand the nature of the MBA and how it's different than the other degrees in the business school. So MBA students were noted for their ability to problem solve and think differently, think strategically, but also bringing these skills together to create high impact solutions. But there was one thing that was also stood out. The credential alone is not enough. And when we talked, the other thing we talked about, and this kind of matched what the employer said in the QS survey, is that soft skills were really the distinguishing feature of the MBA or the generalist, right? And so maturity, the ability to problem solve and think critically, not in a specific narrow domain, but to be able to apply it across multiple domains. The ability to communicate and storytell, really engender buy-in and get people to be able to tell a good story, move someone from this side of the room to that side of the room, thinking strategically, big picture, being able to see the forest from the trees. Ambition was something we were surprised to hear about, because usually that's the thing people hate about MBAs, right? Oh, they're not patient, they don't want to pay their dues, this, that, and the other. And then the last thing that I thought was important was client-centric, being able to really work with someone and partner with them to craft solutions. So lots of good information that's going on. The other thing, we've been hearing in the market is that the value creation is really key for MBA graduates. And tech, innovation, knowledge industries are really dominating, particularly in Asia. In tech, we consistently, for the last 5 years now, have seen strong demand, strong salaries. Corporate planning and business development roles are overtaking marketing and sales roles. A lot of the placement in the region is in Southeast Asia for international MBAs. And one of the reasons that Southeast Asia stands out is because, if you think about Asia Pacific, there's this China sphere that's super huge and powerful, but then everything else is not as homogenous. And so what you have in this part of the world is that, there's no one dominant culture. English is a much more useful tool. And so when I worked in Hong Kong, I could feel the diminishing role of expats in Hong Kong because of the gravity of China. But I think in Southeast Asia, because there's no dominant culture and English kind of serves as the lingua franca here, there's a lot of opportunity for international MBAs. We're still seeing, while consulting is flat, we're seeing growth in some pockets there. Financial services, banking is on the decline with the emergence of fintech and the disintermediation of the finance industry. Corporate other roles are declining in salary for kind of your traditional roles, but as they go through digital transformation, some of the halo effect of the tech industry is falling over those digital transformation roles. Southeast Asia is leading the way in opportunity. If you go back to my chart earlier talking about aging, there's not enough talent in this part of the world, and they're probably a generation away from really having what they need from a human capital perspective. They've all made plenty of progress on the UN SDG goals, but it's going to take time to harvest and gestate that talent. In Asia, ASEAN and Southeast Asia, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam are leading the way, and they're ascending. Malaysia's outlook is strong. It's across the board in this part of the world. One of the challenges, though, as countries emerge from kind of lower income countries to middle income and beyond, is that salaries can be highly variable. So the opportunity is here, but sometimes it's not as straight line or linear to the opportunity. And so that's where, you know, a school in their career services office can really help you navigate that. You know, Hong Kong's a market we place students into as well. And, you know, while the protests and COVID initially have created, you know, some perception issues, now expats are reluctant to go into Hong Kong. And so we're kind of thinking maybe this is a hidden gem. Singapore continues to be Singapore. The amount of VC deals have exploded in Singapore since 2012 to 2019. And Singapore is really a great proxy for what's going on in the region. And if you think about that VC number there, what you're really seeing is that it doesn't mean to go to Singapore, because a lot of that investment is for Southeast Asia. And then Dubai is another place that we're looking to expand into. For those of you guys who don't know, Malaysia is it's effectively a Muslim country, and so building closer ties with the Middle East is important. It's mixed messages. So in the Middle East, they keep talking about Qatarization, Emiratization. The reality of the situation is the scale of the economy to the size of the local population, the math just doesn't work out. So there's a strong environment for expats there. And so one of the things that we've tried to do in ASB is craft a value proposition that really responds to the market. And so for us, we're really looking for frontier-minded and impact-oriented individuals, really looking to build a global career. At the core of our value proposition is the MIT Sloan DNA. So when you hear MIT Sloan, you think of rigor, top-notch academic preparation. The thing that makes it relevant, though, is the Asian context. And so one of the things, having worked in the US for about half my career, is that international students would go to the US, and the curriculums in the US are so heavy US oriented. What you have going on is that people are, you know, you could come from China, or you could come from India, or you could come from Singapore, and you get so brainwashed and indoctrinated in the American way of doing business. When these people come back to this part of the world, they can't handle it, right? Whereas I think it's better to work in this context, in a business school, in this environment, to really maximize the impact. The other thing that we do differently is our action learning curriculum is really based on what the future holds, right? And so we do experiential learning projects every semester, and these projects are well aligned to what's going on in the marketplace and have led to career transformation for our students. And this has positioned them to have strong global career placement outcomes. And then the last piece of our value proposition is market leading scholarship. So in order for us to be the kind of school that we wanted to be, 100% of our students get some form of scholarship, and scholarship ranges from 50 to 100% of students, right? So we're super aggressive with who we want. But our school really can't be what it is without our faculty. And so ASB's faculty have been academically prepared at the world's best institutions. 44% of our faculty have been got their PhD at top 10 QS or Times higher education schools. About 70% went to top 100 schools, and 83% went to top 150 schools. So there's no, sometimes, you know, I had a call with someone the other day, and she's like, well, I can't pay this amount of money for a local institution. And I'm like, you know what, we're not a local institution, we're a global institution. And our faculty have had a range of experiences. Professor Anella Munro, she got her PhD at Oxford, and she worked at the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and the Asian Development Bank. Malati Nandarsi, she went to UNC Chapel Hill, a top American school, just received a huge grant from the World Health Organization after just a couple of months ago receiving a huge grant from Citibank. Renato Lima de Oliveira is a Brazilian faculty member got his PhD from MIT, and he's an opinion leader in the energy industry. And Professor Eli Remolona, director of central banking, got his PhD in Stanford, has spent the bulk of his career focused on the bond markets in Asia. And so we've got world-class faculty with emerging world context. And what they're charged to deliver is what we call smart and sharp skills, right? And so we believe these are the smart and sharp skills are our kind of vernacular for soft and hard skills. But we feel like, soft and hard skills probably don't do justice to the way that the semantics of these terms. And so when we think of sharp skills, we think of that accounting, the finance, economics, etc. But then, we think of sharp skills as the skills that take those hard skills and facilitate really getting things done: leadership, communication, creativity, and problem solving. And having that really growth and global mindset. And we do this through our action learning curriculum, which we think is our key differentiator. It's our greatest source of impact, and it's fundamental. It's the core of our curriculum. We think it's a future-proof skill set that's preparing our students for the future. 70% of our corporate partners, we're talking about multinationals to big regional players, have been repeat hosts. We've done these projects across 26 different countries with almost 150 hosts and 300 different projects. So this is a quick curriculum schematic here. We look at action learning. If you look at the schematic, every semester we do a project, and the pink bars represent when we are on site with our projects with the corporate partners. So in the first semester, we go to class, then go on site for a week, go back to class, then go on site for 2 weeks, and then go to class for 1 week. That's in Malaysia. The next semester, the project could be somewhere in ASEAN, and then you'll spend 2 weeks in Thailand, come back for class, then come back, go back to Thailand for 2 weeks and wrap up the project. Your summer projects can be all over the world. They're kind of analogous to internships. And then at the end of the program, we do a product development project, which is kind of like an entrepreneurial innovation project. And fundamentally, like our philosophy, we believe, by 2025, there's going to be 10 times the amount of data in the world. We can't prepare today's MBA students based only on knowledge transfer. And this kind of learning by doing curriculum, we're teaching you how to learn. We're teaching you how to learn to problem solve so that you can use learning to solve more problems, right, in the workplace. So why does action learning work? It really gives the students a canvas to solve real-world problems and leverage smart skills in a real-world, meaningful context. Because of the spacing, the opportunity, because of the way the curriculum is structured, the learning opportunities are spaced and interleaved. And because you're taking what you learn in class theoretically and putting it into practice, that retrieval practice is effectively the testing effects. And this frequent kind of activity contributes to better retention. And then the biggest part of our action learning process is reflection for self-learning is more impactful, right? And so sometimes if you think about your curriculum, your traditional curriculum, how much time is spent on reflecting on what you learn? We kind of get some information, we go take an exam, we move on, and then we forgot what we learned. And that reflection is integrated into the curriculum through inquiry panels and different deliverables from the faculty. These inquiry panels that we do, they verify learning and they allow for coaching from the faculty. So rather than our faculty being lecturers, they're coaches as instructors, all right? And we feel like, this preparation is only going to help better prepare our students for a post-COVID world. And the evidence has been really compelling. So, in the class of 2019, when we compared our salaries with the Financial Times MBA rankings, the salaries of our graduates ranked 52nd in the world compared to that sample set there. Now, what's interesting about that is that was our graduates. And if you know anything about the Financial Times ranking, those salaries are for graduates 3 years after they graduate. So for us to rank 52nd at graduation compared to a pool of people who have graduated 3 years ago, I think that speaks to our quality and impact. The other thing is that while our curriculum and our experience is Asian oriented, we think it's important to take Asia to the rest of the world, as it's going to be the largest economy. And so of our 35 students in the class of 2019, they were placed in 14 countries across 5 different continents. Tech and innovation and knowledge-based industries were leading the way. And we just launched a working professional program. And I think a validation of our approach is that in our working professional program, which is kind of like an EMBA program, 61% of the students in the first year received a promotion, title change, or expansion of responsibilities. And we feel like, as people are considering various options for MBA programs, this is the place, emerging Asia is the place to be. Consumers and executives are most optimistic about a post-COVID-19 world. There's a couple of factors at play. Asia has been a strategic and proactive leader in managing COVID-19. North America has kind of been in denial and a laggard as Americans. Sometimes I'm a little bent out of shape that we haven't taken it seriously. Confidence is off the chart in the emerging world. So if you look at China, Indonesia, the top chart shows how consumers are feeling about a post-COVID-19 future. And when you see that 8.7, that means for every one pessimistic person in China, there's 8.7 optimistic people about the post-COVID future. In Indonesia, it's 5, India is 4, and this comes from a McKinsey study. And on the corporate side, you see as the optimism is growing amongst executives, it's India, China, APAC. And I think in that APAC number, even though it says 1%, if you pull out Korea and Japan, I think that number for the rest of Asia and emerging Asia would be more like China and India. And you look at the sentiment of North America, it's continued to decline. And so we're seeing a lot of positivity that we think bodes well for our students. Tech and health continue to be the hot sectors, and it's only accelerating. Now, this is a chart that kind of shows our progression in salaries. So we look at PPP, which is cost of living adjusted salaries, and we look at market salaries to make sure we have a good balance. For the class of 2019, our PPP adjusted salary was $130,000. Market salaries were about $73,000, and that was a big progression over the prior year. And so we feel like the market is finding value in our program. In the class of 2020 who just graduated, we're still placing those guys, but there have been some great successes. CJ's in Malaysia. He went to go work as the head of product for a subsidiary of kind of an old conglomerate called Be Infinite. Zoe, she's Dutch. She's going to work. She's working now for the UN Capital Development Fund on digital innovation activities and financial inclusion. Jishnu from India, he's working for AB InBev. He hasn't started in China yet because of borders and everything, but that's who he's going to work with. Esther Han is a Korean American. She's working for a life sciences startup in Singapore, focused on marketing and communications. Rafael is Spanish, but he's working in Samsung's MBA rotational program. Ashley is a Malaysian, and she's working for SOCAR, which is a hot new mobility startup in Asia. Alex is actually working for a mobility product company in the US. And then Kevin is working for Novo Nordisk, a Scandinavian pharmaceutical company, and their leadership program rotating between Kenya and Denmark. And so lots of really great stories, and we're super proud of our students. And, the tide is favoring the generalists in Asia. What we're seeing too is that the lifting of restrictions alone will not usher in normalcy. And I think the planning of Asia is going to position it ahead. The digital models are accelerating change in business. Solutions aren't clear, so I think there's going to be a huge need for MBA talent. The drive to value is rechanging the whole proposition for brands and the approaches to life. So really loyalty is under shock. And so I think this is a huge opportunity for startups and small to medium enterprises to come in and reinvent business models. Places where COVID-19 is out of control, folks are concerned about out-of-home activities, right? And so how do we serve the customer when they don't want to leave the house? Places in control are just they're being more strategic about out-of-home activities, and there's much more increasing conscientiousness when it comes to hygienic packaging and sustainability. And so these are just some of the things that are really impacting the mindset of the consumers in this part of the world, and it's cascading down as far as how it's going to affect the employment environment. And so, just wanted to say, feel free to connect with me if you guys would like to discuss more. Also, you can schedule a call to talk with me. Not many associate deans give out their information, but I think this is how we stay really current and aligned with the market. You can also schedule a call with our broader admissions team. We have a couple of Access MBA events that are coming up across Asia, so you can scan if you want to do that. And then, so we'll be on the road virtually, and you can download a brochure. So at this point in time, I covered a lot of different things here. I know I can't answer every question in a PowerPoint, and actually questions are my favorite part of the presentation. So I'd love to go there, Kim, and we can move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. That was like super thorough, and we really enjoyed hearing all about the the offerings, the region, the sort of competitive advantage of Southeast Asia. So I'm excited to get on to the questions. So one of the questions I have on the chat is, how does the career office facilitate the sort of the placement or the discussion of sort of the connection between applicants, students, and companies?
So there's a few things that we do. So first, in Asia, it's a different hiring environment than say the U.S. The U.S. I think is a macro MBA hiring environment, and so what does that mean versus a micro environment? So in the U.S., what you have is that companies come to campus and they do interviews in September or October. Then they make offers in November, December, and then people accept offers in January or February. And in Asia, it doesn't really work like that. And when we say micro, there's been a lot of literature that talks about how HR in Asia and talent management in Asia is not as strategic and forward-looking as say in the U.S. or Europe. And what happens is talent roles tend to get filled, 8 to 12 weeks in advance of what they're needed. And so we've developed this framework at ASB called the seeding, tending, harvesting framework, where it's a network-based approach. And so rather than, because we're small, I think earlier I showed you we have 80 students, companies are not going to come to campus just to do on-campus interviews for small schools like us. This isn't just an ASB thing, this is an Asia thing. And even when I was at HKUST, we had 120 MBA students per class, and so about 240 full-time MBA students. And so we were really small. And so I think if you added up like all the top 100 schools, not including the Indian schools, but say like the Chinese schools, Singapore, Hong Kong, they would still be smaller than one class of Harvard. So what we have to do is bring our students to the employers. So before COVID, what we did is we would do career treks, and our strategic markets beyond just Malaysia are Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai, right? And so we would conduct treks and work with our partner network to host career events in those parts of the world. The other thing that we would do is through action learning. So if you're doing a project every semester, we're very intimately engaged with a lot of our corporate partners. And so our students tend to be, because we're doing projects that are representative of the challenges that students have, right? What you have is that those projects serve as a proxy for what the market's looking for. And so rather than it just being about the Career Center pushing jobs, it's providing a preparation that's really relevant to the marketplace, right? And so someone who's interested in a supply chain management, associate or manager, looks at one of our students and says, wow, you've done that project with Air Asia, or you've done that project with Dole Pineapple, or something along those lines. So I think it's really bringing together, our career network, and then also bringing together the action learning. And I feel like we have one of the best teams in Asia. So, so like for myself, I've worked in the U.S. at top 25 business schools, in Hong Kong here. Our career director she went to school in the U.S., got her MBA in Cornell, went to work at McKinsey, and graduated during the financial crisis. Our deputy director, he went to Harvard. He graduated during the financial crisis. We've hired career coaches from Hong Kong and Singapore to help facilitate the transition and access in those markets. And so we feel like we have a really comprehensive kind of push model when it comes to placing our students.
That's great. I think that's a great explanation of how this works at small business schools in general, but definitely in Asia. And I think with the network that you have, it's probably quite a strong strong support. So thank you for that answer. I am getting a question from, where did it go? Okay, here we go. Sorry, a question about the application process and eligibility. So can you speak a bit about what eligibility, probably from the point of view, I think the person's probably asking about, what
Yes.
qualifications you need, and then also how do you apply?
Yeah, so our next application deadline is at the end of January, and there is no application fee. So one of the things that we talk about is really creating access for the market globally, because our focus is on the emerging world. So that's why we don't charge an application fee. Also, we have a test optional admissions policy, right? And so you're not required to do the GMAT or the GRE. And so one of the things that we do is that we try to look for markers in your profile to see academically, can you handle the rigor of the program? So if you have a STEM degree, or you went to like a school that we're very familiar with, say IIT or the or University of Mumbai or Delhi or something like that, where we have experience, we're able to quickly calibrate and see how your performance did at some of those schools. Now, if we don't have enough evidence for you, and you don't have a test score, excuse me, then what we do is we offer conditional admission, where we have this online quant course that people have to do in the summer in advance of the program. All right. And so, that's not to stress people out. People might think it's high stakes. 95% of our students pass it. Because we are an intimate program, a small program, our faculty are still hands-on and intensive with the students. And so that's on the academic side. Of course, we need your transcripts and things. The other thing that we require are, your essays about why ASB, why Asia. We want to hear like the thoughtfulness behind what you're trying to accomplish by pursuing an MBA in Asia. We look for letters of recommendation. These are a great source of us, assessing whether you're a team player. Does your kind of story in the application match what you do in the workplace? And then let's see what else. We said grades, test scores, essays, interview. And then after that, you get a decision, right? And so people always ask us, so what about scholarship? And so our scholarships are all merit-based, and the strength of your application on those dimensions that I mentioned earlier dictates the strength of your scholarship.
Okay, yeah, that was the next question. What are the scholarships you offer? So every applicant is automatically considered for a scholarship?
Absolutely. Your application for admission is your application for scholarship, and the strength of your application dictates your strength of scholarship.
Okay, great. And just to be clear, because the end of that question about application process did ask, do we have to write any entrance exam? So you said test optional, and you don't have your own exam either. There's no exam.
No exam. GMAT,
all right.
No GRE. But that said, it can help, right? So what we see where test scores can help is that, if you were a 50% scholarship and you had a good test score, it could move you up a tier to like 65% or something like that.
Got it. Okay, I have another question here about the internship. Sorry, the month in MIT Sloan.
Yeah.
So students spend 5 weeks on MIT Sloan campus. So what does that look like? How does it work?
Yeah, so as part of your tuition, all your travel that's related to action learning and the program is included in your tuition. All you have to do is pay for your food, right? And so we cover, for like the MIT trip, we cover the cost. The tuition covers your flight and your 5 weeks of accommodation in the US. So we spend 4 weeks at MIT and 1 week in New York City, kind of doing an overview of business in the US. And then when you're at MIT, you take about 4 or 5 classes. And the whole intention is to really immerse you into the kind of MIT feel of the experience, right? And we think it's a great broadening experience because most of our students have never been to the US, surprisingly, right? So.
Okay, great. Yeah, that must be very enriching, and I'm sure it gives people a lot of inspiration for what they want to do. Okay, so I think, what's my next question here? I mean, this another question about internships. I think that's covered, right, in what you just mentioned.
Yeah, so that summer in between the first year and the second year, we do a summer associate program. It's like an internship. About 70% of the internships come through us, but students also have the opportunity to self-source their internships. We've had students who are like, oh, you know what? If I'm from the U.S., I want to go back and do an internship in the U.S. Or they're looking to do something beyond Asia. But everyone who wants to get an internship usually gets an internship.
Okay. The next set of questions I have, I'm getting a few of them, and they're about different geographies, but particularly, do Indian students get placed easily? And I think the question is, do they get work visas in KL, in Singapore, in Thailand? What's the Thailand network like? So those are kind of a mix of several questions I'm getting.
Yeah, so I think these questions are, so for Indians, like in the class of 2019, all of our Indian students were placed outside of India, right? And so it's absolutely possible. The struggle for Indians is no different than the struggle for other people. And so what I do tell people is that in Asia, while the generalist is ascending in this part of the world, people still hire on experience. So one of the philosophies that we have in our career process is that there's three dimensions to a career change: industry, function, and geography. Now, the U.S. model has been built around, I want to change all three dimensions or two out of the three dimensions. And what we try to tell students is that you have to build your story around at least one of the dimensions, right? Especially related to industry or function, right? So if you're trying to change from oil and gas to consumer, fast-moving consumer goods, right? But you work on the procurement side of oil and gas, we would recommend that you, if you want to move to FMCG, that you stay somewhere that's close to your functional expertise, right? Because people hire on that. And from a visa perspective, that facilitates an easier visa process as well. And so we try to coach you into the industries that are the most receptive to your profile and that kind of thing. So.
Okay. A question about how much is tuition?
Our 2-year tuition is about $87,000 US, and that covers housing. And so I think can people still see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so on the new campus, in the lower left corner, those white buildings are 4 blocks of housing, and the building on the right is the academic building. So you can literally walk right across the street. The tuition includes, housing in these new state-of-the-art facilities. So yeah, and it includes the travel that we talked about earlier.
Okay, got it. Okay, and all right. Okay, someone's again asking about scholarships. There's no separate application, and the scholarships, everyone who applies is eligible for a scholarship. Did I get that right? Did I answer the question?
Anyone and everyone who is admitted will receive some form of scholarship.
Right. So I don't think that what I'm sort of sensing is cost should not be a barrier for anyone who's interested in ASB.
Absolutely. You're getting a world-class education. And what I would tell people is that every year our scholarship pool gets, a little bit smaller because more people apply and we grow, right? So while we do grow our scholarship pool, the rate of our enrollment is growing higher. So it's a super competitive process. But, our number one goal when it comes to financial aid is to be market leaders.
Great. This question is about the action learning projects again. And I think you've answered this, but they're not limited to Asia. The question is, are they limited to Asia, or do they include other geographies like US, Australia, Europe? I think you said that they do include all.
Yeah, so for internships, so the summer associate program is when we typically have students go beyond Asia. During the school year, they're in Asia. And so like last year, we had projects as far east as Korea and as far west as Saudi Arabia. So they're mostly in the during semester projects are mostly in Asia. But
Okay,
they're across, like Cambodia, we've had projects in Cambodia, Myanmar, Philippines, Hong Kong, China. So, yeah.
Okay. And then a question about what are the opportunities for entrepreneurs considering the startup wave globally?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've recently changed in our curriculum is that we launched the last action learning is a product development oriented entrepreneurship project. And what we've done is we've started that entrepreneurship project from the beginning of the program now. And so because we recognize, like, as a startup business school, we want to have, an environment for startups. And so in this action learning project, people are required to develop working functional prototypes and such. So that's something that we think facilitates that, and we wanted to commit even more resources to it. If you look in this picture, like almost that whole bottom level of the building on the top right is our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. It's sponsored and by the Air Asia, and so we're really committed to taking our entrepreneurship efforts to the next level. We've had successful entrepreneurs. We've had students who went to work this past summer on different entrepreneurship projects across the world. There's probably a couple articles, if you check in on our LinkedIn page, about students who have kind of leveraged ASB to enhance the value of their current enterprise or launch new enterprises.
Interesting. Great. So that sort of leads into the next question, which is what about campus life clubs, extracurriculars, trips? There's a lot, it seems like there's a lot of it in the curriculum, but what is there extracurricularly, if that's even needed?
Yeah, no. So I would say more than any school in Asia, we have, I think one of the things that American business schools have been noted for is this holistic kind of educational experience, where you have a great inside the classroom experience, but also a co-curricular experience that really kind of helps round out the development of the whole person. And so, we have, like consulting clubs, students are working together on case competitions. We have the Technology and Entrepreneurship Club. Also, like for us too, one of the things that I think is a great opportunity at a young school is that there aren't any sacred cows. And so we're a pretty intimate organization. Like our students call our dean by his first name, Charlie. It's, you have access to people. And I think one of the things that I can talk about from my time in Hong Kong, like sometimes, legacy colonial places, the approach to things is that if there's not something in place, the answer is no. Whereas we kind of have the opposite disposition. If there's not something in place, the answer is yes, let's figure out how to do it. And so you have an opportunity to be a part of the program, establishing institutions, leaving a legacy in a way that you really can't do at other schools. And I think, fortunately for me, like I got my MBA at Rice University, and at the time it was only 20 years old. Working at HKUST in Hong Kong, it was a young university, and so really, open and progressive. And I think both ASB is more progressive and open than both of those places were. And so I think it's a great place for students here. We have a super progressive culture, not just with professional development clubs where we celebrate cultures. We have an African Students Club and LATAM Students Club and that kind of things. So you also get this social cultural development in the program as well through the clubs.
That's great. We have time for like one more question, so I'm going to ask it. Because you mentioned in your presentation about I think, I don't remember which Middle Eastern country you mentioned, but you did refer to the Middle East. And so a person is asking about, job placements in the Middle East, specifically Dubai. Does that happen? Do you see that as sort of the right fit? If that's someone's goal, is ASB the right fit for them?
Yeah, I think so. One of our biggest challenges with the Middle East is finding people who are interested and committed to the process. I think, we've done multiple career treks in Dubai, and we just did a virtual career trek in Dubai for the COVID world. So we have access, we have relationships. Because of our sample size, we haven't had a success there, but it's a strategic priority for us. The other day, and this is one of the things that when we talk about the intimacy of the program, the nature of our network, I just connected one of our alums with an opportunity with a friend of ours, at ASB who was looking for someone. And so he just had an interview at the Dubai World Trade Center, to work on some kind of, retail and hospitality things. And what was great about it is that this student had an action learning project, focused on, hospitality in Indonesia, right? And there was a connection there. And so he's in the process of interviewing with the Dubai World Trade Center, because of the relationships that we have. So we're not on scale just yet, but I think, our access, within the ASB community, and also being a part of the broader MIT Sloan network, gives us the opportunity to, reach into different markets.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sean. It's been like really lots of good information. I know I did meet you just pre-COVID and I learned a lot of this, but it's great to have a refresher and also to just see, everything, comprehensively sort of presented. It's been very helpful. And I hope that, as you said, if you want to go back to your QR code for people to just finally screenshot it, that would be fine. But yeah, thanks a lot for sharing all this with us. And yeah, if anyone has more questions for Sean, here's the way to contact him. And please reach out to him or us if we can answer any questions.
Well, thanks so much. You guys have been professional, easily one of the most professional education preparation organizations I've dealt with, high quality, first class, and we're looking forward to working with you guys more in the future.
Great, thank you so much. It's the feeling is mutual, so onward and upward.
All right. Have a great evening, you guys.
You too. Bye.